Welcome to our e-learning for the Neptune DXP SAP edition. Today, we will be covering the topic of offline applications and encryption of data for offline applications. What you'll learn after this training is to create an offline application from scratch. You will understand how offline application works in Neptune. You will be able to retrieve data from the backend and save it offline in an application. Also, you will know how to send back that data to the backend. You will learn about automatic synchronization of data, how to encrypt offline data, and how to use cache data in more than one application. And last but not least, learn the best practices when designing and developing offline applications. For this training, we will do an exercise together. So we will create an offline application for inventory. This application will contain a set of components. The first of them will be a list of materials. This list of materials is retrieved online the first time. So the data that it will contain will come from the backend. And then that data will be then stored in the cache of the device for further readings. Then, clicking on one of the items from this list, the user will be navigated to a second page where they can see the detail for that selected material. And inside this page, they can as well input all the counted value for that material. That value will be then saved in a list of counted materials. This list will be kept offline, okay, so it will be saved in the device, and we'll be only saving that data back to SAP after a button. So it will have a button to send the data to the backend. So let's start building our offline application. And for this, as everything, we will need an ABAP class. Let's say I have this class, which is a normal class using the IVNAT server. And at the moment, I have just one public method for it, which is for get material, okay? So we will retrieve the list of materials with this method. Obviously, this class will have more methods, but we will add them further when we add complexity to the application. This method will just retrieve that list and put it into one of the attributes of the class, just as we always do. And in the front-end side, obviously, this application, I assign it to my application class. And I just went a little bit ahead and I created a first page with a header and a list. And this list is bound to the same model source as the list of materials, with the same Ajax ID that retrieves these materials as well. And obviously, all the information is going to be received into that list, okay? If we notice here down on the list of attributes from our list, there is one part here that says module. To start with, so online applications, they will have the set init load online, or they will have it empty in case that you call it on demand. So you want to make that Ajax calls whenever you want, okay, using the get online, etc. But at this stage, I just want to put them online. And there are several other methods that I will explain when we transform this list into an offline list. So very simple so far. So let me activate everything and show you what we have. So just launching the app, and after a few seconds, it will retrieve the list of materials and display them on screen. Okay, so all this is happening online. But what we want is that this list is retrieved online only the first time. So when the user launches this application the first time, but then it's going to be saved in the cache of our machine or our device for further readings when I'm offline. Okay, so this is what we're gonna do next. It is important to let you know that for all offline applications to work, they need to be in the context of a launchpad, okay? So you won't be able to use or to test an application offline working directly with the application. Okay, so you will always need to wrap that application inside a tile and then use it inside a launchpad. Okay, so if we launch the same application I just showed you before in a launchpad, just open in here, it will give me the list of materials. Okay, so at the moment this is coming completely online. Let's change that. So let's start making our changes into this application, and we want to save the data from this list to be cached in the memory of the device. Okay, so it will be retrieved online only once, the first time, but then after that I want it to be saved in the cache, and then whenever the user is entering the application again, the data will be already there without any calls to the backend. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is to grab that list or that UI element containing the data, and we're going to go to the attributes, specifically the attributes called model. Okay, and the first attribute that we will check or activate is this one. Okay, we will go through all of them, but this is probably the most important one, which is called set enable cache. Okay, this is the one that we set it to true, will do all the magic. With this one, we are just telling him, hey, I want your data to be saved, to be capable of being saved offline, to be saved in the device. Okay. The second one that we want to change is set cache type. Okay, once I told him, okay, I want this module to be saved offline, then here we need to decide what type of cache we want to use, how we want to store this data in the device. Okay, and there are three options here. Okay, the first one, and is the standard one, is the local storage. Okay, which is just using plain normal storage from the browser that you're using in your application. It has limitations, local storage. Okay, first of all, it's quite slow, and secondly, it crashes if you use large amounts of data. Okay, so I would use local storage if you are just saving, a couple of informations, like for example, your general settings or a couple of parameters, but not to store, like in our case, a full list, especially our list, which has 3,473 records. Okay, for these scenarios, I would use either IndexedDB or WebSQL, which are the other two options available for you for large amounts of data. I will choose, in this case, WebSQL. Then there are other parameters. Remember the set init load we talked before? So here it is. If I leave this application like it is now, it doesn't matter if I have the set enable cache set to true, because always, every time my application will be launched, we'll be retrieving the data from the backend. Okay, so we need to change this. And this attribute has three options. The first of all is cache. So set init load cache, what we'll do is that every time the application is launched, it will only retrieve the data from the cache, whatever is saved. Okay, we could do it like this. And then in JavaScript, we could do a little to verify if the cache is empty, and if it's empty, we call it online. This is doable. Another option, which is more elegant, is this one, online on empty cache, and this is what I will be using. Okay, if I do this, Neptune automatically, when the application is launched, will verify if there is any cache available for this table. If is there any data saved in the cache, it will put you that one, it will display that one. In case it doesn't, then it will do the call online and also save the data for you. Okay, so you don't need to worry. Obviously, this is not for all the scenarios. In my case, it works because I want this data to be retrieved or to be displayed to the user when the application is launched. Okay, but there are scenarios where you need to either stick to online or cache. Okay. There are other attributes that for this example, I will leave them as they are, so false. But I will explain you what they do, and I will show you after this exercise how you can use them. So with these three options, I just need to activate my application and test it. To test these changes that we have done, first thing we need to do is to go to the Launchpad, okay? Remember, we will always use the Launchpad with offline applications, okay? And before opening my application, let's open the developer tools in your browser. We will work specifically with two areas here. The first one is network, and the second one will be application. Remember, in network is where we will see all the calls, the online calls, okay? The calls to the backend. And in application is where I can check the storage, the local storage, whatever is saved in my device. So what we're gonna do now is to open my application, and when I open, I notice here my online call, because it's the first time I'm launching my application, so it went online, okay? He made the call and put my data here, okay? Now, if I move to application, magically, I have here some information inside WebSQL, specifically in module, okay? And what I notice here is that the data has been saved, okay? It's like a JSON, okay? So it's not very easy to read from here, but anyway, this is how we know that the data is saved, okay? So he saved it with a key and a value. Okay, so it's the name of my application, then the name of the object that contains the data, and then the name of the launchpad. This is the way the key is formed. You don't need to know this, okay? This is transparent. It's just for you to understand how it works. So now, if I ever call my application again, and let me refresh the whole launchpad, whenever I click here, open, it shouldn't make a call to the backend to retrieve the data. Okay, so he should take the data from the cache. So when I click on open, you will see that the data was automatically there, and there are no requests in network, nothing at all. Okay, so it was using the data saved in the app cache of the app. Okay. So first part is done. We know how to retrieve data from the backend the first time, save it offline in cache. Now we need to carry on with the exercise. So the idea would be, so we have the first table containing all the list of materials ready, okay, and completely offline. So what we want to do now is that when a user clicks on one of the items from this list, it takes you to a second page where the user can input their counted amount, so for the inventory. And then when they click on a button, this will be saved into another table, which will be completely offline. So whenever we are online again, we can synchronize this table with the backend. Okay, so to do that, I went ahead and I already created two pages, one for the details. So when the user clicks on the master list item, it takes you to a detail page where they can put the value that has been counted. And I created another page, which will be like an outbox containing the list of all the counted materials with the value registered there. Okay, so just to show you how it looks, then I will explain how it has been created. So imagine we have the list. So when I click on one of these items, I will have the amount that is coming from SAP, and I can just put here, for example, 1,500 pieces. And when I click OK, the material will be counted and automatically will be displayed here and clicking on this button will take me to the outbox table, okay? So this table is offline, is saved offline. And whenever we hit on a button for synchronizing this data to the backend, then it will be saved into SAP. Okay, so let's see how this has been done. I'm not going to explain how I created this part and all the logic. I just want to show you the logic of the page outbox and the logics of this button, which are this is the button that will be saving the value into the outbox table. Okay, so this is very important because we will know how to save data offline into a UI element. Okay, and then I will show you how has been created the outbox table. Okay, so let's start with the outbox table because we need to get it ready first. So we have this list. This list obviously needs to be bound to a model source from my class in the backend. In the backend, I already created in my class, in the attributes, several new attributes. One of them is a work area material, just to handle the second page data. This has nothing to do with the offline functionality. And I created two more. One which is IT outbox, okay, which is exactly the same type as IT material. So we're saving it the same structure. So coming back here, we want to see the functionality of the button. Clicking on the button, then we can handle the press event for that button, okay? And in the press event is where we're going to be coding whatever is needed for saving this input data into the outbox list, okay, completely offline. So to do that, we're gonna use our helps. We have here in the SAP UI5, and then you have a section here that says offline, okay? Here you have several codes that will help you. In our case, we want the model update, okay? Because we want to update a model for an offline table. There are several options here. I will just go for the first one. Let me delete all these. Okay, so this code will help me to update the data in that list. Okay, so first of all, I need to choose which object I am updating it into. So in my case will be outbox list. What's the key field? So all the key fields, I know that in my application will be material number. Okay, what will be the value? It's contained in my second page. So it will be in the module of my page because I bound it to work area material, which contains the data from the selected material from my first list. So I know these data will come here. So it will be model o page detail dot o data dot material number, and then it's telling me which data do I want to save. So what I want to save is the whole set of data that is in the page detail as well. Because remember, this work area, page details, contains the data coming from the first list plus the new value that I added, okay, manually. So it contains the whole thing, and that's what I want to send. So everything that I will send is the whole of data of my page. And I don't need an operator because I will be saving everything. With these, I am updating the list, but I'm not saving the data offline. Okay, so if I only do this line of code, whenever I reload my application, outbox list will be empty. Okay, so the magic happens now. Do you see this code here? Set cache. Okay, so this is the way that we can save data into the storage of the device where the application is running. Okay, there is get cache if you want to get it from cache, or set cache if you want to save data. So whatever data that contains our outbox list, which right now will have whatever we put here in the model, I will just save it. So with this command, I just need to put here outbox list. And that's all. After this command, that data will be saved offline. Obviously, there are more stuff that we can add here. For example, a message, message toast, just letting the user know that the material has been counted. Also, I can add, in this case, for example, to update the list counter next to the button. I already created a function for it, and I just call it like this, set outbox list counter. Okay. Practically, this function, what it does is to read how many lines outbox list have and then put it next to the name in the button. And also, I will do a navigation back. So, back master. That's it. Also, we need to do an extra thing because now we just saw how can we save the data in cache, okay, through this command. But we need to render the UI5 element available for it, okay? So we have our inbox list, and remember we need to go to the properties, specifically for the model properties, and we need to do our thing here as well. First thing, just as we did before, set enable cache has to be true. Cache type, also I want to use web SQL. And also set init load. I think in this case, we want to get it from the cache. So we want that the application, when it's launched, automatically all the data is taken only from the cache. Okay, so the user will have the data has been processed before and saved offline there. Okay, never online because it's not connected to any API or any AJAX call. All the others can stay false, just as they are. Now we want to test and verify that the data is saved in my application. So I will launch the Launchpad again. And before opening the tile, let me expand our developer tools and let me open the app. And I can see that automatically the data is rendered. So no calls have been made to the backend. And in fact, I can see here the data coming from my master list. So that is saved in my master list. So let's go and now let's count one material. Hit on my button. Okay, I notice here that my button has been updated with the quantity that has been counted. And here, obviously, it doesn't appear because I need to refresh. So I need to go back and enter. And now I have two records, two lines. One master list and one outbox. Okay, so the outbox, this is the data that's been registered, okay, in the cache. So now I could refresh, go back again, and my data is there automatically. Okay, so the data appears there because remember I put the init load of the app is coming from the cache, so it will be there automatically. Now we are going to check how can we send back that data to SAP when we are online. So in this exercise, we will use a button that will be appearing in the outbox list. Okay, so this will be retrieved online on demand. So the user will do it. It won't synchronize automatically. So we do it through a button. And obviously we need to prepare our method in the backend. So I already created a method, which is to save the counting. This method takes the data in IT outbox, which is our attribute, which is linked to the list that we are saving. And also in the handle on Ajax, I added a new Ajax ID called save counting that will practically call that method. So coming back to our application, first thing we need to do is just to give an Ajax ID to the same list, outputs list. It could be a separate Ajax ID. You choose separate Ajax object or this one, okay? And in safe counting, I make sure that I'm sending and receiving my output list, okay? Send and receive. Then in the press event of my button, okay, at the moment I just have set busy true, but I need to do a get online outbox list, and that's it. So I make sure that I do an Ajax success, set busy false, and in case of error as well. So let's activate and let's verify. So inventory counting, I get this one. Remember, he already saved it from previous readings for this material. So when I go to my output list and I click on synchronize, voila, automatically, you know, the list has been erased because the data has been sent to SAP. And in fact, if I go to network and I choose my last call, I can see that is calling that object, that Ajax ID. But what happens if I don't want the data to be sent only when the user clicks here? Okay, I want Neptune to verify if I am online or not. And in case that I am online, I want to send that data. Okay, so now we will do that. So we will need a script. So I will search from my list of UI5 elements and I put it in the resources folder. And what I have to do here is a little function. Specifically, I need a time interval. So I need the application to verify in a certain interval of time, and if I am online and if I have data in my outbox list, then I will call the get online to save the data, to send the data. Okay, so in this case I chose from the script helps the interval. Okay, you can choose how many milliseconds you want to do this interval. I don't think we need to do this very frequent, okay? So we can either put, I don't know, every 10 seconds or also every minute. And then every minute I will write my action. So what I want to do, first of all, I need to check if I am online or not. And there is a property of the Launchpad that tells you that, okay? So I will write in the console, app cache. Remember, the object app cache is only available in the Launchpad. That's why offline scenarios works only in Launchpad. The app cache has a property called is offline that will return either false or true, okay? In our case, we are online at the moment, so that's why it's giving us false. But what happens if I do this? Let me close my connection. I set myself offline and I recall this. Okay, so I will get app cache is offline. So I know that this, but if it's not offline, then I will call get online outbox list. Obviously, remember always to put, you know, oapp.setBC equals to true, just to give it a sense of synchronicity on it, okay? I want to show you now the usage of the other attributes for offline applications that we didn't see in the previous exercise. The usage of the set cache global, the usage of set cache user based, and set enable encryption, okay? And for doing that, I have expanded our application and I created on the first page a button to show the user parameters. It's opening in a pop-up, okay, that will display a form. And this form is very simple. We'll just show two values for planned and storage location of a user, okay? And this is coming from SAP the first time, but what we want is the user to save it offline and use it even beyond the application in the context of the Launchpad, okay? So for that, we have in our backend one structure for GV settings that contains those two fields. And in the methods, I created one for get default values and obviously an Ajax call to retrieve that. Okay, so the Ajax value to get the data online is get params. Coming back for a wrap, I just added that model source to my form and I added the Ajax ID to get that. So we want to save these offline, this form. Okay, so first thing that we want to do is set init load. In my case, I wanted to load it from the backend when the cache is empty. So online on empty cache. Second, set enable cache. We set it to true. Set cache type. In this case, are only 2 parameters are going to be saved, so I can freely use local storage. And now we're going to be using set cache global. Let's set it to true. Set cache user base. Let's also get it to true. And set enable encryption. At the moment, let's leave it false. And then change it just for you to see the change when we debug. So let's save these. And at the same time, let's create a second application. And I created one application that is pointing to the same class. However, it's not necessary that this class has to be the same. It could be another class. But the important thing is that at least the object that we want to use in another application as a global cache have the same model source. So what I'm trying to say is GV settings has to be as well defined as an attribute in my other class for another application. Okay, that's all that is required for it to work. So in this page, what I'm going to do is I'm going to check and I'm going to try a form. I will bind it to my GV settings. The important thing here is, well, apart that I will just create these 2 fields. Something very important for it to work beyond my application is that the name of the UI5 object must be exactly the same. So in my case, the first application is called General User Params. And this one, I need to call it exactly with the same name. Otherwise, it won't work. And obviously, my module properties for this object, set init load, we can put it as cache. Set enable cache, obviously true. And set cache global, also true, and user base, also true, because it's the same attributes that we put on the other application. Okay. In the launchpad, you can see that I already added a second tile for my second application and the same tile that we had before. So I'm going to open my developer tools. I'm going to clean all the SQL data from application storage clear site data just to start from scratch with no data cache before. And I'm going to open my first application. As you can see, is retrieving the materials. And when I click on network, I can see that there are 2 calls. One is for my materials and another one is to retrieve the parameters online. So when I try to open here, I can see that the values are there, okay, for my user parameters. And if I go to the application, especially for local storage, I can see here that it saved my data for those parameters. And notice now at the name of this, okay? So it says state.key general user parents, which is the name of my object, then the launchpad, and then my name. If we compare it to the web SQL one for material, this name changed completely because this one has also the name of the application where the object is. That means that the material cache information belongs to the application. So you cannot really use that data beyond an application. But the data contained in the local storage, you can, because it doesn't have information of the application at all, but only information about the object, which is called general user params, advanced training. And then as well, I said it's user based. So it's linked to my username. If another person logs in into the same application, the first time, it will create another record here with exactly the same name, underscore, his username, and with another set of values here. Could be the same, could be different. Now, I want you to see how it works, especially the global cache. Okay, I'm gonna get out of this application. I'm gonna navigate to network. Let me clear this. And let's open the second application, which contains the form with the two user parameters. Okay, and when I open it, I can see that it retrieves just the view of my application, but there is no call to the backend for getting the user applications, the user parameters. And automatically the data is retrieved there. Exactly the same data that we had on the first application. So this is the way that you use data saved in cache in different applications. So you can retrieve the data from the front end in an app, save it in cache, and then reuse it in multiple applications within the same launchpad if you save that data in an UI element containing exactly the same structure and specifically the same name. Now, just to finish this exercise, let's also set enable encryption on this. Okay, so I'm going to set it to true, activate my app, and when we come back to our application, in order to see that the data has been saved encrypted as well, first thing that I need to do before trying it again is to clear all the data that is being saved in cache. And I need to be sure, because I saved this one as a local storage, make sure that I choose as well storage as local. So clear site data, refresh my launchpad and open inventory counting. I can see my two calls with my data. But if I go to application, local storage, look at this now. This is my parameter containing the data and now is encrypted. So you won't be able to understand which values does it have. Okay, so it's a very good way to keep a level of security into the offline scenarios. So we have developed a full offline scenario for an app. But let's recap all the model attributes that we have available in UI5 objects for developing these offline scenarios. The first attribute that we have is the set enable cache. This one will allow the object to store data in the cache. So this is probably the most important. Without this attribute set to true, you won't be able to save any data offline into that object. The second one is to define what type of storage you want to use for that object. Okay, and remember there are three types: local storage, which is normally used for small data, WebSQL or IndexedDB for larger data sets. Also, you have another attribute called set enable encryption. If you set this to true, all the data hosted and saved in the device will be encrypted, so it won't be able to read while debugging. The other attribute is set cache user based. This property will separate the data depending on the user that is accessing in that device. Okay, so this is very useful in scenarios where you have multiple users using the same device. Set cache global, it will store the data, but it will make it available outside of the app, so you can always use that offline application data in the context of the launchpad. So in another application inside the same launchpad. And last but not least, set init load, where you define how would you like the data to be retrieved the first time. Okay, and remember there are different options: cache, online, or online when empty cache. And let's recap as well all the JavaScript code for offline scenarios. And let's cover the main ones. There are more, and if you navigate to our website and you see in our community, you probably will find others. But these are the main ones that you will always remember when developing offline applications. The first is get cache, okay, and then the object name. Get cache will get the data from the storage of the device into the UI5 element. The second is set cache object name. Set cache will save the data contained in the UI element into the device memory. and also app_cache.isOffline, which is a variable containing information about the current status of the device, if it's online or not. This is very helpful to make you understand when to save data, when not, or when to do an online call or not. Well, that's all for now. I hope you find this useful. Thank you and happy learning. See you next time.